Martha Frankel. Martha Frankel's newest Olympic sport is looking cool as a cucumber while roiling inside. Tonight, she might actually get the gold. Martha Frankel.
Oh, boy. All right, you judges, judge well. Okay. About a month ago, Steve and I were in LA, and I got a call from Teresa Keegan, who used to live here and used to work at the Bookfest with me, to say that she teaches a writing class in Laguna, and was I going to be down there? And I said, yeah, we are. We're coming down for the weekend. And she said, if you're still here on Monday, we'll hire you to come teach at this workshop that I do. So it was the word hire that got me. And so we went, and I said, can I bring Steve? And my friends Aaron and Blair were there, and we all went. I don't know what I thought it was going to be, but it was 30 people, and 9 of them were women, 21 were men. I teach writing a lot. I don't teach men anymore. They just take up a little too much room. And so I said, you know, go around the room, introduce yourselves, tell me what you're working on, fiction, memoir, and, you know, if you have any questions, just stop me and ask. And I talked about craft, and I talked about creative nonfiction and what it meant, and I talked about what I've written, and I was sort of, the women, the 9 women, asked 5 questions apiece, and all those questions were, who am I to tell my story? And I was like, this is the thing that drives me mad, that women don't know that. Meanwhile, the 21 men asked these many questions, not one question. I thought it was kind of funny, and when we left, Steve said, what the hell just happened in there? I said, I know, I'm used to it, but it was really prominent. I mean, a woman who was probably 90 asked me if it was okay for her to tell her story, what if her mother got mad? I wanted to say, Cookie, don't worry about your mother, but I didn't. I just so when I was leaving, Teresa said, hey, we spend another half hour doing a free write. Why don't you give us a prompt? So I just sort of offhand, I said, well, my favorite prompt is, I've never told anybody, but. And she said, oh, that's good. And so the next day she wrote and said, wow, there were some amazing stories. And one of them was by an Indian gentleman who was sitting in the back of the class, and I had noticed him. And she said he told an incredible story, and that story is not mine to tell, so I'm not going to tell you, but here's what happened afterwards. He wrote probably a paragraph of this story that he had never told, and he read it aloud. And then he was walking home with one of the women from the class, and he said to her, I need to sit down, I think I'm having a stroke. And so they sat there for a while, and she said to him, you don't appear to be having a stroke, you're not having any of the symptoms. And he said, well, where were we? And she said, we were at the writing class. And he said, I don't remember. And she said, well, Martha talked for fucking hours. I don't know how she described it, and he didn't remember me. He remembered me coming into the class, but he didn't remember my being there. And I have to stop telling the story at this point, because I now knew in reading the email what had happened to him, because it once happened to Steve, and it once happened to our best friend, and it once happened to a poker buddy of mine. It's called transient global amnesia. And it's a complete amnesia, but it goes away. So when it happened to Steve, he just had no idea what year it was, why things were happening. And I had to take him to the hospital, and it was the same doctor who had treated my poker buddy, who told us that he's had it twice, the doctor. And then he once walked into his wife and said, you know that place I work? And she said, you mean the hospital? He said, yes. You know those people who come see me there? Steve was like this too, didn't trust anyone. And she said, you mean your patients? He said, yes. Every once in a while they have something and it has 3 letters, I'm having it. And she took him to the hospital. So this man writes to me, and he was so blown away by the work, by writing about this thing that he had never talked about, that happened to him when he was 8, that he had a dissociative state and had this transient global amnesia. And meanwhile, I'm reading it, and I'm reading it aloud to Steve, and I'm not laughing at the man, but I'm like, holy shit, now he's the fourth person I have made have a TGA. I mean, that's not what I meant, but his sort of, like, I think stories are what move us, and I think stories are what bring us together and push us apart. And I don't know, like, I felt really like connected to this man. I was so happy for him. And he wrote to me and said, I'm never talking about that story again. And I said, no, you have to sell it. This is an incredible piece. And so it just I felt like here we are listening to stories all night, listening to, how one sentence can mean 30 different things. And I'm just really happy to be part of this community, part of this community, and thank you all so much. Thank you so much. I'm hoping those judges are going to show up soon. But if not, Ida can sing in another language.